Thanks for coming back to the next edition of Econ Talks. Gareth, at the moment we are watching as Auckland remains in alert level 3, the rest of New Zealand in alert level 2. Very, very challenging times that we've seen come through, another change in alert levels.
Yeah, probably no surprises that, COVID was going to try and sneak back in at some stage. I mean, you've done some early work trying to assess what the impact might be for the economy. What's your take on it?
Yeah, look, I think in a sense we are going to see a swift hit to economic activity, particularly in Auckland. An expectation that spending at levels in Auckland will be down around about 40%. Compared to normal. The rest of the country or the nationwide figure spending down about 15%, and likely sort of larger hits coming through for both Otago and Wellington regions. Otago, a third of their visitors come from Auckland, and Wellington, you've seen the public service which has scurried back to work from home, and a lack of business travel as well, which is going to cause some challenges. However, and this is quite an important however, this is really just probably delayed action. What we're going to see is that people who won't spend for a few days, they will come back. They will spend once we're out of this, as long as it is a relatively quick shift. As well as that, what we're also likely, or what we're seeing already, is that businesses have been here before. We had a level 3 lockdown in Auckland in August. As a business, you were ready, you got prepared, you went through your protocols. Second time around, you're a bit more of a pro at it. You know what you're doing. You know how to make sure that you are able to operate a bit better. So those estimates of just how many people might not be able to work, originally we thought about 28% of the Auckland workforce, 250,000 workers could be not operational. That's actually probably quite a bit lower in a sense, because we will have seen some changes to business operations, some more contactless delivery, some more online shopping, all of those sort of options, which shows that businesses are adapting or starting to adapt, and will very much lower any economic hit we might see. Hopefully just a blip on the radar, if anything, for the economic outlook.
Yeah, so obviously initially the lockdown's been timetabled for 3 days, although my feeling is that's probably going to be extended to some degree. I mean, Treasury did some modelling or some forecasts late last year, some scenarios suggesting that if we had a lockdown maybe every quarter for the first 3 quarters of 2021, that we could see unemployment roughly 1.5 to 2 percentage points higher than it would otherwise have been under the essential scenario. Do we feel that those numbers are a little bit exaggerating the effect on the likes of employment? I mean, obviously, this is only a short lockdown at this stage, but also the fact that businesses are, more adaptable at the moment, and, we kind of are prepared for this sort of scenario to come through.
Yeah, I think that probably you're exactly right there, Gareth. I think the employment hit is likely to be pretty subdued, if apparent at all. Certainly with this being a shorter lockdown to start with. I agree that at the moment, without a firm sort of lead on where that transmission might have occurred, I'd agree that, if I was a betting man, you'd extend it for a bit, just until you've got a bit more confidence. But certainly on that employment point, back in August is also quite instructive, because that was a relatively long period, about 2.5 odd weeks at level 3. Now, we did see a jump in the number of people on a job seeker benefit in Auckland, around about 2,000 odd. But look, in the grand scheme of things, one, that wasn't huge, and two, actually very quickly in a sense reversed out. We didn't see it sort of trend up all that much more. So it was, again, a bit more of a blip coming through. The challenge, I think, for this one is that on one hand, you've got some businesses which are a lot more resilient, a lot more adaptable, a lot more dynamic in this lockdown. They're ready to operate. On the other hand, Auckland was already doing it quite tough before, hearing reports of particularly central CBD Auckland, shops operating at no more than 60% of normal revenue levels. I mean, that's a really tough one for some of those hospitality and retail operators. So the difference here is going to be that sort of the macro view, the overwhelming view for the city is probably likely to be not too much of a hit, but there are going to be some real key sectoral differences. The challenge I have, and this is a really serious concern, is that, again, the track and trace systems of government got into action very, very quickly on, Sunday afternoon. Once we knew that we had a case of community transmission, they were up, they were ready, they were tracing. We heard nothing really for the next 24 hours or so around what sort of business support might eventually be provided. The end of last year, the finance minister announced what the resurgence package would look like. It was only lucky, I think, today, in fact, that they actually started to pass that package through Parliament under urgency, going through all of it in one day. Look, that concerns me in the sense that we weren't ready from a business point of view. We were not ready to help support businesses. And we've discussed before, you and I, that we need to provide more sustainable support for businesses. We can't just sort of keep giving out wage subsidies. But at the same time, businesses have no clue of what support may or may not be provided. Even today, with this rushing of the support through, the Finance Minister and the government have actually changed some of the settings on that. It used to be that for some support you had to have a 14-day hit to revenue. Now it's only 7. So again, it does just worry you a bit that we haven't got some of our settings completely right. We've had enough time to figure it out, and I feel that we probably should have been a lot more on top of this one.
Yeah, I mean, look, given that you're talking about the impact potentially being concentrated in the likes of, a small pool of businesses in the hospitality, the tourism areas, that's where the biggest hit is likely to be. I mean, would you prefer to have, a much more, I guess, formalised structure in terms of where that support might be, and it being targeted, being clearly, specified ahead of time, so that, businesses are not sort of wondering what's going to be coming through, and so that we're not, wasting money in some senses, giving it to businesses that don't really need it?
Absolutely, and I think that's critical for sort of 2 points. The first one is that we do know that there are quite big sectoral differences coming through here. Some are really doing it tough. Now, and a lot of times those revenue reductions are going to help dictate who gets support. Having revenues fall 30-40% is, generally speaking, going to pick up most of those who are doing it particularly tough. But I think as well, it probably needs to be, how do we support some more of those transitions for retail, for hospitality to operate as we move through, so ready possibly for those alert levels. But the main point here is that it's in a sense got to be well signalled and possibly front loaded. That was the real benefit, I guess, of the wage subsidy. It was an immediate upfront support for businesses. If you were a business, you were an employer thinking about and concerned about your incomings, your outgoings, your workers, you didn't have to worry for all that long, because you knew you had support straight away, not possibly in a few days' time, in a few weeks' time. Whereas this time, everyone's sort of waiting, are we, won't we, will we, how's that going to work? And so the worry, I guess, is if we don't sort of put something immediate there to help, you might have businesses who go, look, maybe I'm not going to cope, maybe this is going to go on too long, maybe it is going to be too hard, and they do make some more rash decisions. We saw that overseas. We didn't see that in New Zealand because of the immediate nature of the wage subsidy. So I think we need to think about those principles a lot more and actually design some real firm government support that's well signalled ahead of time, so that we're not sort of playing a guessing game across the country.
Yeah, and that's sort of how we feel at the moment. I mean, COVID was probably not going to be the last lockdown that we face through the course of this year. So there's still a lot of uncertainty out there that businesses are grappling with. And I think that anything that the government can do to try and mitigate or reduce that uncertainty in terms of having those, clear objectives, clear policies and programs in place would be really helpful.
Absolutely, and look, we've dodged a few missiles already, in a sense, with going hard and going early, and that was the right response from an economic and a health point of view. We've got lucky in a sense, I guess you might say, but we've also made our own luck. We've made sure that we're resilient to these sort of challenges. We haven't had any community transmission further from testing over the last 2 days. I mean, that's a great start, and long may it continue. Look, we'll keep looking at this, you and I and everyone else at Infometrics, and we'll update everyone hopefully on the next edition of Econ Talks very soon. See you later.